life. I work from 9 to 5. Hey, what? I pay the price. All I want is to be left alone in my average home. But why do I always feel like I'm in the twilight zone? And I always feel like somebody's watching me, and I have no privacy. Whoa, I always feel like somebody's watching me. Tell me, is it just a dream? When I come home at night, I bolt the door real tight. People call me on the phone, I'm trying to avoid. But can the people on TV see me, or am I just paranoid? When I'm in the shower, I'm afraid to wash my hair, 'cause I might open my eyes and find someone standing there. People say I'm crazy, just a little touched, but maybe showers remind me of Psycho too much. That's why I always feel like somebody's watching me, and I have no privacy. Whoa, I always feel like somebody's watching me. Who's playing tricks on me? Who's watching me? I don't know anymore. Are the neighbors watching me? Well, is the mailman watching me? And I don't feel safe anymore. Oh, what a mess. I wonder who's watching me now. The IRS? I always feel like somebody's watching me, and I have no privacy. Whoa, I always feel like somebody's watching me. Tell me, is it just a dream? I always feel like somebody's watching me, and I have no privacy. Whoa, I always feel like somebody's watching me. Who's playing tricks on me? I always feel like somebody's watching me. Whoa, I always feel like somebody's watching me. Who's watching me? I always feel like somebody's watching me, and I have no privacy. Whoa, I always feel like somebody's watching me. I can't enjoy my tea.
Live, this is One for the Record. I'm Diana, and today is October 5th, 2013, and here are your news updates for today. The Extinction Protocol 2012 and beyond. Financial analyst warns U.S. debt fault would trigger a Great Depression. U.S. seismologist calls for national early warning system for earthquakes. Oh, here's something else. Let's move down. Mysterious quake swarm damages many villages in Galati, eastern Romania. Strange sounds like boiling water. Ooh, heads up! U.S. gridlock on debt ceiling, increasing dangers of default. Banks loading ATMs with cash for possible bank runs. Heads up. Unseasonably early snowstorms bury Wyoming and South Dakota. Heads up, a lot of extreme weather out there. The Watchers watching the world. Understanding the cytochemical power of turmeric. Antibacterial soap pollutes rivers, adds to bacterial resistance. Mysterious quake swarm and mysterious earthquake swarm and big earth cracks reported in Galati, eastern Romania. Tropical storm Karen develops in Gulf Coast. Typhoon Fitao threatens South Japan and eastern China. Wow, that was hard to say. I'm sorry. Let's see. Alright, breaking news. BreakingNews.com. Let's see what we got going on here. Okay, a lot of extreme weather. Let's start with 4 hours ago. Multiple intersections closed due to flooding in Kankakee, Illinois. Law enforcement reports coming out of breaking weather. Let's keep going. There's a lot of them. Magnitude 5.3 earthquake hits west of Năriju, Romania, coming out of USGS 3 hours ago. Also, emergency manager reports significant damage in Marquette County in Wisconsin following reported tornado. Coming out of Storm Chaser 4850 3 hours ago. Small forest fire in Southern California forces evacuations of hospital military base. Coming out of AP 3 hours ago. Tropical storm Karen weakens to depression over Gulf. All tropical storm warnings discontinued. That was 3 hours ago. NHC Atlantic. Toxic air pollution from China causes high mercury level atop Mount Fuji. Japanese study says. Coming out of AFP 2 hours ago. Wildfire near Camp Pendleton, California grows from 250 acres to 1,000. NBC LA 2 hours ago. Reported flooding hits Louisville, Kentucky as storm moves through region. That was an hour ago. Breaking weather. Heads up. $31 dead, approximately 2 million affected as flooding hits Thailand. Disaster Prevention and Mitigation Department reports. Coming out of Bangkok Post 1 hour ago. 52 minutes ago, heads up. Tornado warning in effect for portions of southeast Indiana until 12:15 a.m. CDT. Central Time. Coming out of the Weather Channel breaking. Alrighty then. E&E News, the Energy News. Fukushima, Japan. Caldecott. Fukushima much worse than Chernobyl. Nuclear engineers say there's no end in sight to this. I predict they'll never be able to fix it. She's a Nobel Peace Prize. Okay. Also, Professor, we know all sorts of radioactive leaks are happening at Fukushima. It's just not being documented. Situation is extremely unstable. Everybody's just struggling to figure out how to deal with this. Also today, Gunderson, major problem inside pool at Fukushima Unit 3. Pieces of nuclear fuel rods were blown out during criticality explosion. Building could shatter if another big quake hits. Also, Caldecott, we know all sorts of radioactive leaks are happening at Fukushima. It's just not being documented. Situation extremely unstable. Everybody's just struggling to figure out how to deal with this. I think I just said that, but what? I guess it's twice. Gunderson. No. Caldecott. They think China syndrome has happened at one or several of these reactors. Nuclear engineers don't know what to do. No way they can control it. There is nothing to do. I think they'll never clean it up. Never. Guess they'll never contain it. That's what she's saying. Japan professor, I won't eat any seafood. I've changed my mind. I changed my entire diet. Refuses to buy any fisheries product from any market anywhere in the country after bringing detective to store and learning actual radiation levels. Heads up, don't eat the fish in Japan. And if they send it over here, then maybe they should be arrested, right? Whoever lets that come over here. Also today, radio, Japan professor moved family out of country after finding radioactivity levels contradicting official claims it was safe. Government doesn't want anyone to talk about radiation from Fukushima. Alright. Alrighty then. Let's see if there's anything going on in U.S. Canada real quick. Wow, let's see if we can make this smaller. Something happened. It's gigantic on the screen. Wow. Oh, maybe not. Alrighty then. Maybe nothing. I can't get in there. It's not going. Oh, maybe it's going now. Yesterday, radio health physicists in U.S. worried about inhaling hot particle from Fukushima, either uranium, plutonium, etc. Oh, heads up. Alrighty then. It's one day down of the weekend, one more to go. Heads up, be safe. Don't eat fish if it's from the Pacific. That's it. Alrighty then. I will see you tomorrow. On the flip side, be safe. Alrighty. Stay tuned. I got Dr. Deagle on from Friday.
Welcome back to the NutriMedical Report. We've got a remarkable panel. Of course, one of our most popular hours of the week is the third hour on Friday. Preparedness, civil defense, earth changes and space weather. And, of course, monitoring all the international viruses like coronavirus 2 coming from Saudi Arabia, the Middle East, the H7N9, and much more. And we have John Moore, who has his own radio show, co-host Ann Morrison. And joining us probably quarter past the hour, we'll have a short report from Professor James McCanney. John and Ann, what are the latest that you're presenting on your show, and what's the latest on the radar? Because I know, Ann, you have a lot of research you've done. We talked about it this morning, so I'm going to not steal your thunder. Tell us what's up.
Go ahead, Ann.
Oh, okay. Well, we have a new update on the MERS, the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, and so that we need to talk about that perhaps. And then we've had a CME hit the Earth, and it has given us Aurora Borealis, that is far south as Kansas, and these Aurora Borealis lights are very bright red, and that's very unusual. Auroras are usually green and sometimes purple, but we normally don't see this much red. And I believe, oh, and by the way, these auroras are being seen around the world and under the world. In other words, they're being seen as far south as Kansas in the northern hemisphere and in New Zealand in the southern hemisphere. Now, the bright red is probably being caused by strontium salts, probably strontium carbonate. The strontium, I believe, is coming from Fukushima. Strontium-90 is one of the fission products, and so if we have strontium around the world now, everybody in the world is subject to uptaking strontium as calcium, and that will be stored in the body as calcium, but the body cannot use it like it uses calcium. So it'll be stored in the bones and in the muscles, and one of the effects of that is heart attacks. And I bet the last time you went in to see your doctor, he didn't tell you that you should be worried about radiation, but you should.
Right, well, strontium and, of course, both cesium-131 or 137 are what's called cardiotoxic. And what they do is they act as an analog of calcium, but what they do is they're much more active because they have a beta particle emission. And they turn from strontium into yttrium. And in fact, the electron or the beta particle emission is so powerful, even if it hits lead shielding, it can actually generate X-rays. So you can't have lead shielding if someone's got acute strontium-90 poisoning, because you'll actually generate more X-rays in the department. It's pretty strange, but that's true. A lot of people that died after Chernobyl died of actually cardiac arrhythmias and cardiac arrest and vascular disease. And the rate of stroke in Japan since Fukushima Daiichi has gone up by 3,500%. 35 times, and that's because people aren't dying of cancer yet. But the cancers will happen in waves, and of course there'll be certain cancers that are much more early on, some types of lymphoma and so on that start relatively quickly. Other cancers may take years before they actually mature. But vascular disease, neurological disease, breaking down the blood-brain barrier, and what's called superinfections, where the immune system and mitochondrial failure happens much earlier. So you have people dying of pneumonia, dying of intercurrent infections, the very elderly, the very young, they're going to die quicker, and the cause of death may not be directly linked to radiation, but it is. So the numbers that they quote right now, between 22,000 and 85,000 dead in America since Fukushima Daiichi, are probably lower than they should be. We know that the neonatal nursery death rate went up within 4 to 6 weeks in Pennsylvania, which is a long way from Japan, went up 42%. And the only statistical factor that was changed was Fukushima Daiichi and airborne radiation. So, and the radiation, by the way, level are now higher than they were back in March of 2011.
Well, and that's even true in the plume that's crossing the Pacific that's due into Hawaii in 2014 and to the west coast of the United States in 2015. The radiation is stronger now, and you can say, well, how can that be? Because we're used to things that get diluted.
Yeah, exactly. This is just getting ahead of steam on, isn't it?
Well, yeah, because when a isotope decays, it might create 2 or 3 daughters, and each one of them will decay, and so then you have triple the effects that you would if you just had that one isotope.
Well, on site there's 3 things going on. The first is that the zirconium cladding on the fuel rod assembly bundles creates hydrogen, so you get hydrogen explosions. The second is what's called a lava lamp effect of the corium, and as more of the corium falls down, especially these fuel rod assembly cooling pools, which have got tremendous amounts of radiation, you're going to see much more hydrovolcanic and nuclear explosions, and they're going to release a lot more radiation. Some of it will actually vent out underneath the reactor site, out toward the ocean floor miles away, or in toward land, toward fault lines that can carry it all the way to the tube train system in northern Tokyo, in the suburbs of Tokyo or in the outer-lying areas. The next thing, of course, is you're going to get what's called, burps or bursts of radiation. Our radiation level now, since they had the typhoon a little over a week ago, they released, they say 1,000 tons. It's probably considerably more than that. The level of radiation is 22,000 times more radioactive than allowed into the ocean, and they're just letting it in. They're not doing anything to stop it. Even the lower parts of the so-called containers are actually squirting out radioactive water toward the workers. There's no way they can get in there safely and do anything now. It's literally turned to a radioactive oatmeal mush, and so the subsidence of the buildings means they're going to collapse, and when they do, if they try to pull the fuel rod assemblies or just happen spontaneously, we're going to get a thing called a pyrophoric fire, where these fuel rod assemblies will go on fire. So, a very bad situation indeed. And it means basically we're in the worst environmental disaster in human history, which is killing the unborn and the elderly, speeding vascular disease, accelerating the onset of things like mitochondrial failure, which is conditions like diabetes and vascular problems. So the rates of many illnesses are going to go up dramatically, and people will not say, well, is that Fukushima doing it? Yes. Fukushima is a major driver for worldwide genocide, and it's happening as we speak.
Well, I'm just dismayed that that all this money that we send, that we donate for research into vascular diseases and heart disease and heart attacks, they don't even mention radiation. They don't even mention the fact that we have been subject to exposure by more radiation than our grandparents ever were.
Well, they know that from Chernobyl. I mean, if you actually talk to doctors from Chernobyl, I took care of people actually migrated from the Chernobyl area in Ukraine and Belarus that were exposed downwind radiation. And we saw the young people and older people, and a lot of the younger people in their 20s and 30s had heart attacks and strokes. Let's switch back for a second here and go to the SARS coronavirus, because this is a big deal. The Hajj is coming on later this month. And 3 million people coming back from Saudi Arabia have to go around the Kaaba, which is a big meteorite, has lots of holes where they shove their prayers into it, and then kind of swarm around it, so there's very close human contact. The latest research is that there are multiple versions of virus growing in the same individual, and the only way to get an accurate culture is deep in the lungs. One of the reports you sent to me was interesting. I want you to read it and tell me what you think it means, and then we'll kind of comment on that.
Well, they put out a new update, the World Health Organization and also the Ministry of Health from Saudi Arabia. And this has to do with the MERS, the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome coronavirus. And they're talking about the time period between June and September of 2013. By the way, there haven't been any new cases published since September 18th. So all of the cases and all of these cases have been directly or indirectly linked through travel to or for a residence in 4 countries. So these are the 4 countries: Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Jordan, and the United Arab Emirates. They're no longer sending the sick people to Germany or to Britain or to the Netherlands. They're taking them all. They're keeping them all within whatever country, either Saudi Arabia or Qatar or Jordan or the United Arab Emirates, where they fall sick.
Yeah.
And no cases have been reported in the United States, but 82 persons from 29 states have been tested for the MERS coronavirus.
What I heard in the comments by Henry L. Nyman is they were culturing from their throat, which is useless because most cases are mild. If it goes to your deep lungs, you have to do a bronchoscopy and aspiration. You actually have to put a scope down and aspirate. And the virus is not easy to culture out, but you have to do a deep aspiration to get anything. So they're sloppy.
Do you feel the...
To prepping, you're a prepping expert. And I tell people if you want to get a consultant that'll help you prep, whether you're packing to go to the Cook Islands in a container or you just want to know what to do, it's simple things a lot of times people forget. We have the 10-plus list we put up in the preparedness area, but we have a couple of things likely to happen. I think one of the first things the government will do if there's any kind of disruption, whether it's an airborne plague or a presumed cyber attack or, any of these things, they're going to shut the power off. And I tell people they should be prepared for at least a coronal mass ejection spontaneously by the sun, shutting off the power, at least the satellites and all pieces of the power grid network. And I think that people aren't prepared for that. They're not prepared to even have stored water. They don't have food. They don't have self-protection. They're just not ready for anything, are they? What would you tell people for this particular kind of set of events in the next, say, 6 months? What are the key things they need to prepare with?
In a major metropolitan area would be a nightmare for most people. They would not have the resources to survive for very long, especially in the northern areas where it gets really cold. If you were going to survive in a major urban area without power, you better have a deep stock of fuel, high walls, 10-foot walls, plenty of weapons, and 10,000 gallons of water. It would be extremely difficult and very dangerous. You're far better off being away from the cities in a less populated area where you can heat with wood, as long as the EPA doesn't take our wood stoves away, by the way, and have a source of water that you own and you control, along with a stock of food that can be replenished in the spring when the spring crops are planted. So being self-sufficient in the country is a far better idea than trying to tough it out in an urban area.
Yeah, exactly. Now, where I'm personally located is outside the town or cities, near Camp Pendleton, but up in the mountains. Where we are is a gated community on the side of a blue granite mountain, and it's very defensible. What I tell people, the minimum thing is you need to have, I like the John Moore rule, 2 is 1 and 1 is none. That means if you have water filtration systems, have 2. If you have 2 sources of water, have 2. Have a roof water system, have a collection system where you can even collect water from, if you have a pool or some other collector, and ideally even a third system like a well. Be prepared for backup power. I just spoke this morning to the director, Robert Styler of V3 Solar. He'll be in on Monday. They're the ones that developed not only the V3 Solar spinning solar conversion power systems. One little dome, 2 feet across and 2 feet high, will generate a kilowatt of power. Those will be available probably in the second quarter, maybe the third quarter next year. Plus, they also have technology for a storage system. Three storage systems we're looking at right now is, number one, lithium pyrophosphate batteries are the best with power controllers. So whether you get wind, solar, or if you have propane, because we have a 20 kilowatt backup propane generator, you want to have those. You also want to protect them with a Faraday cage over your integrated circuits, because the first thing to go is satellite, second is ground-based power generation distribution networks, third is going to be home electronics and things, anything from your electronic stove to refrigerator and your personal electronics, and the fourth and last thing to go is cars, because they're grounded. But
right.
And they're also inside a steel box.
Cars
So
are
like
not grounded. That's why they don't go.
They're not grounded, yeah. And because they're also in a steel box and they're not grounded, they're unlikely to develop a induced current that creates a problem. So the V3 solar is going to be a real big solution. They have their own storage systems. That'll probably be the second or third quarter next year. I tell people at the very least, they probably should, and this is from my solutions, I think that a propane-powered backup generator, 20 kilowatt, from Generac is probably the best first step solution, because you get a power controller that can take multiple sources. If you then get a power controller with lithium pyrophosphate batteries, you can run your generator just 2 hours a day, and the rest of the day when you don't need high power because you're not washing or cooking or doing other things, you can just run on batteries. Right. That's smart. And I tell people, have a backup, have wood stove, have inserts if you have a propane style, fireplace, put an insert so you can actually boil water and cook on it. And even if you've got a fancy flat top and you've got induction heat and all the other stuff, assume that if two is one, one is none. The same way with backup food. You can have your prepare-wise food, and you better have a garden and a greenhouse. You better be prepared for any eventuality, including a number of people that show up that you didn't expect to show up, that are friends, and you're not going to turn them away or shoot them. So you got to be prepared for lots of eventualities that are going to screw up all your plans. Like Robbie Burns once said, the best laid plans of mice and men gain afterglay, which in Gaelic means are often go astray.
They do.
So what other things would you recommend, John?
Well, we covered quite a bit already. You want to be sure you have a source of potable water that you own and you control. Your food squared away, and make sure it's food that, if you have small children and older folks, those are two groups that will not eat unfamiliar food. Children under 5, people over 75 or 80. Make sure you got a way to defend yourself, a way to communicate, both talk to people that you care about, and also to intercept all the emergency frequencies in your town, in your county, in your state.
Exactly.
The police, the fire, the paramedics, the fire, everybody.
Yeah, in other words, have like a walkie-talkie system. By the way, we now have Professor James McCanney. Professor McCanney, can you give us an update of what's going on with the, as you mentioned yesterday on the program, the Mars-Went Comet? I like that term. What's happening and what's likely to happen as we approach the November 13th deadline, where we now have a parallel blackout of information flowing from this and disinformation ops going on, which are directly abusing your information and scientific discoveries. At the same time, they're putting the public in danger of not knowing what's going to happen next. What's happening?
Well, I got an interesting email today, actually it's forwarded from some of the staff at Joyce Riley, and it said that NASA is going to make some kind of big announcement on November 13th, some major discovery. So we all thought that was rather interesting, but when you go to the web page, it's a malware web page. So I don't know. Things are getting strange.
The things are spoofy. If you go to the website, I heard about that. There's also a spoof page talking about some major disaster that's going to happen. Yes, I think that the government is doing every kind of activity we call PSYOP against the population. When the outgoing director of DHS says there's a 100% chance of a CME striking the Earth, how would she know? I mean, as I tell people, hitting the Earth with let's say a 50 caliber weapon, which is an anti-aircraft weapon, is like hitting an egg at 150 to 200 yards. It's not easy. Why do they think that they can say absolutely anything? Even if there is a superstorm on the sun, do they know? Do they have some kind of crystal ball, or they've gone to the future and come back? How would they know this stuff? It's and then they mix it with cybernetic terrorism. Then they kind of disabuse the fact that they don't want to tell you that as these comments come in, like citing spring next year, these comments are dangerous. This is totally aside from the issue of people trying to throw in the Planet X stuff, which may be way out there. The real issue is we got something from coming at us now. It's like people worry about being hit with mortar when you got a guy with an automatic weapon shooting 100 bullets at your head. It's like you need to worry about bullets, not mortar. You know, the comments are happening right now, and they're dangerous.
Another issue that's going on is there are dozens upon dozens upon dozens of misinformation pieces using my name, using clips of 2002 radio shows, putting them, pasting them together. One of them that's been prevalent on YouTube, where I'm supposedly saying there's a solar system coming in, like a Nibiru solar system coming in to our solar system, and that's totally misinformation.
Right.
It's totally created misinformation. But here's what I want to tell people. Sometimes people post things on web pages or on blogs, and they copy them, but in their wake is what we call the trolls, the internet trolls that work for the government. They're pasting all that other garbage around my name. So I'm telling people, you know, just if they want to do me a favor and do everybody else a favor, simply put a link to my webpage where people can go there and see what I'm saying, not on somebody's blog that gets hammered with other misinformation.
Right, and of course you're not diminishing the danger of Ison, but we have to be balanced in terms of our approach to this, and we also have to think, well, why is the government doing all this NERC trial when they haven't hardened the grid? This is craziness. Welcome back, and we have Professor McCanny. I want to just change the name again. Of course, I'd like to change it with the name of Obama to, I call him the Abomination, but I got a new one. Because with blocking out things that are open monuments like the Lincoln Memorial, as you said, John, that's really funny that your mind would think like that. Yeah, what are they going to do, spray paint it? I mean, come on. What do they think they're going to do? They don't even have a guard there. They just want to aggravate people, frighten them, maybe frighten the bond markets and the stock markets so they can shake it. Every time that somebody comes on, like the Fed Reserve chairman comes on, Bernanke, I call the teddy bear from hell. That's what he looks like with that little short crop beard. He looks like, ooh, this looks like a teddy bear got out of Hades. And every statement they make is, oh my gosh, the stock market goes up or gyrates down or whatever word he says. And I think Obama and these people really are trying to blow. It's a controlled demolition of the economy.
Ison were very interesting. On the 24th of September, it turned green, which is an indication it is becoming very excited. It's lighting up like a neon light bulb, basically. That's CO, which, by the way, only does that in the on our knowledge on Earth in a heavy welding arc type scenario. That green glow that you see when a welding arc is going, that's carbon monoxide green. That's what it is. And that's what Comet Ison was doing. Okay, on the 29th, it developed a sunward spike as it approached Mars for its October 1st closest approach. And then I was watching Tuesday morning, right before I was on with John Moore there on the show, and that morning I saw the glow around Mars, and indicating that Mars went comet. The term I developed because there is no such term in science. But Comet Ison moved in front of the planet Mars and off a little bit above it, but Mars, and you can see the connection between the comet and Mars with the tail of Comet Ison connecting to Mars, and then I saw the glow around Mars just like a comet, a slight halo. And so indicating that when Comet Ison, if it holds together, which I assume it's going to, as we move into November 10th to the 13th and 14th, when Ison has a backdoor perfect electrical alignment with the planet Mercury, I'm expecting, and it's hard to predict, predictions are difficult to make, but I want everybody watching early in the morning from about the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th of November, looking at the planet Mercury. It's in the early morning sky. Comet Ison will be up above it, right up above it in the morning sky, and I'm expecting that given that Mars went comet from that close approach, that the planet Mercury, we may be able to see naked eye comets developing around Mercury. And that is huge. This is an event that, how is NASA going to explain this? And I'm hoping it happens either with binocular visibility or with naked eye visibility. How would NASA explain this? Because Mercury has been well examined, well studied by spacecraft. It's bone dry. There's not a trace of carbon monoxide or any other gas, water element on Mercury. How are they going to explain it's developing a comet tail? So, so anyway, I'm very excited about this. We're going to have to see what develops, but very exciting times. But oddly enough, this is the initial date of the NERC, the North American Electrical Reliability and Safety Corporation's proposed activity. It's like a planned power outage drill.
Which is also dangerous. It can actually cause power blackouts to the nuclear reactors and blow parts of the actual physical structure of the grid.
Yeah, they're very vague about what this is. If you ever read middle management verbiage, like corporate, what would you call it, like a corporate goals or things like that. You know, when you read these, they're very vague.
Fuzzy. Obtuse is the word. They're purposely obtuse so that if they do something, they say, well, we told you, but it's so obtuse you can never figure out what they're actually doing. And then they say, well, after it goes wrong, well, we said we told you, you should have been ready for this.
Yeah, and so there's supposedly all kinds of government agencies involved in this, but they're not saying what they're doing. What's going to happen?
They're not saying, are they going to do a station blackout to nuclear reactors to see how they scram or respond? They're not talking about how they're going to shut off parts of the grid to see if they are able to build up power distribution so it doesn't black out large areas of the country. They're not telling us anything. They're not saying that they're going to have police officers on different parts of the country. I mean, this is really what I call scary and crazy activity when they have got no warning of what part we're going to play in the so-called national and international drill, Canada, the United States, Mexico.
And there's no reason for doing this because, in reality, we are at the lowest possibility in 200 years of having a solar flaring event. The only solar flares we've had recently are due to comets. The one about a month ago, a comet came in. Before it hit the sun, you could see the spark coming out of the comet. It ignited the sun into a huge CME. And then Comet Ison, when it aligned with Mars and it started developing that sunward spike, wham, we get a big solar flare that actually hit Earth. We had red auroras the other night, also on October 2nd. We had what you call red auroras. They're very low-latitude auroras. They're the most powerful kinds of auroras. And that was caused by that connection of Comet Ison with Mars. And, so the only solar activity we've had is due to comets. And it's something that NASA emphatically denies. So, the situation is so bizarre. And couple that with the, like I say, dozens and dozens of misinformation postings using my name, trying to use my work and distort it. It just, this is, I've never seen anything at this level. And then you couple that with the fact that NASA is shut down. We don't have a space agency. We don't have any instrumentation. And by the way, all that instrumentation is not run by NASA. I made a very clear...
It's run by what? Contract, right?
Well, the cameras, etc., there's a company in California called Malin Space Enterprises that filters all of the photographs, everything that comes from NASA, what we consider NASA satellites and data, is filtered through that company and probably some other ones that I don't know about. So this information is still coming in, it's still going somewhere, it's still going into Tier 1 science. Remember, Tier 1 science is not shut down. Right. NASA is, but that's the Tier 2 level.
Right.
It's shut down. The public energy.
You're one of the main scientists in the world, has corroborated what I've been saying for years, that we've had a bifurcation of science into Tier 1 and Tier 2, not just for centuries, but for millennia. but it's really become very acute in the last 100 years. And the globalists who are crafting this want to make sure they literally are bifurcate civilization so they not aware of energy, like did you say, from the solar system, solutions for environmental issues. As the Andy Schlafly, the attorney for the Association of Physicians and Surgeons, said that their book, their website was called Conservapedia, the primary problem worldwide is a lack of energy in third world countries, not food. If you have energy, you can grow crops, you can have transportation, you can do anything. The fact is, you've written about this. They don't want to tell you that when you open up the Pandora's box of saying that comets are plasma objects and therefore dangerous, but it also tells you there's limitless energy out there. Literally all the problems they try to propose, including the peak oil and all the other garbage, and limiting the population in Agenda 21, is all a lie.
Yeah, it's interesting that the Tesla towers would be most productive, would do the best job in the equatorial region of the Earth, and that's where most of the poverty third world countries are. So they would have the best access to literally free energy.
Wow. So stay aware. We're going to have ongoing reports next week with Professor James McKenney. Thank you, John Moore and Morrison. Great research
Have a good
on all three. I really did appreciate your hard work and your own program, of course. John and Ann, you're on Republic Radio right now. I think it's 6 to 7 a.m. Central Standard Time. Monday to Friday. Professor McKenney, thank you for your scientific determination to tell the truth and get it out to us. Take care, everybody. Take action. We'll be back live on Monday morning. Chuck Cresbar will be back on Monday afternoon as well.